Hey, Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with another High Octane Walkaround. Now, if you're a Chevy fanatic, you will undoubtedly fully know what an SS 396 is. Now, 1965 was the first year that the big block 396 was plugged into the midsize Chevelle, the Z16. Only 201 of those were built. But for 1966, the big block 396 became a regular option in midsize Chevelles as the SS 396. And this is a 1969 from the second year of the second generation for the body. More of a fuselage look than the first gens, which were crisper and looked bigger. In fact, they were. These ride on a shorter wheelbase than the 1965 through 67 Chevelle. 68 onward, a shorter wheelbase by about 2 inches. It doesn't really show up, but with that said, a very sleek and very popular car. In fact, in 1969, 87,030 SS Chevelles were built. Now that includes 323 Copo 427 cars. Copo, of course, means Central Office Production Order, a way of getting weird things built. And again, 323 people says, we want the 427 in our Chevelle, not that little 396. Now again, they're the same basic engine, but again, the 427 is a larger engine, cubic inches wise. But the 396 is still a very potent engine. Now something interesting about 1969, it's the final year for a non-functional hood scoop. But here's the thing, it does work in a way. Now we all know that 1970 brought along the optional ZL2 cowl induction hood with a little flapper at the back. Well, for 69, the double hump hood here was standard on SS, but does it really do anything? Well, it does and it doesn't. These chrome grills here are perforated. They absolutely are not ornamental. They do something. They got holes in them, but the air goes into the cockpit or the passenger compartment, not into the engine, because right underneath here is the cowl. And below the cowl is where the openings are for the astro ventilation that goes in the car. So basically, these are ram air for the occupants. Yeah, crazy, but true. Just keep walking around this baby. Of course, the SS 396 came with lots of external identification, which was so important in the muscle car era. Up front, the SS 396 logo right there in the center of the grille. And the crazy thing is those 323 Copo 427 cars did not get any external identification in the form of SS. They were non-SSs, but they packed 425 horsepower. But again, this one's a 396, and again, on the fender right here, the guy on the Roadrunner or the Cobra Jet Mustang in the next lane would say, uh-oh, 396 SS. Now keep in mind too that 1970, the year after this car was built, the 396 became a 402, but with that said, there was also an SS 454 when Chevrolet really opened the floodgates on horsepower. But for 69, the 396 was as big as it got in a normal Supersport type Chevelle. Inside, this one does have the optional bucket seat interior. Yeah, optional. Now in full-size Chevrolets through the 1960s, when you had a Supersport Impala, it always had bucket seats. Well, not so with the midsize Chevelle. These things generally, in standard trim, had a bench seat and a column shifted automatic. Well, you had to pay extra for the Astro bucket seats, which we see here in the center console. So the SS doesn't come standard with buckets in Chevelle land. The wheels on this, of course, are 1969-68 style 5-spoke wheels. Great looking rims. These are 14-inch by 6, and again, 15-inch wheels would not arrive until 1971 for the Chevelle SS, but 14-inch wheels were kind of the standard of the industry in the mid-1960s. At the back of the car, we have that SS 396 logo once again. So again, Chevrolet had you identified front, side, and back right here. You had a big block on board. And to add a little sinister touch to the SS, the black bar here, which was only seen on Supersports, alerted people that there was something powerful under the hood. What is that? Let's go take a look. Now, before we open the hood, let's remember once again that 69 SS hoods don't function for the engine, but rather they're for the occupants. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a peek. Okay, well notice, here's the engine. We'll get to that in a second. But this rubber dam right here, inboard of that, those big openings, these go inside the car. Well, what do you know? The vents that are on the back side of those hood bumps feed air down into those vents. And believe it or not, there is a low pressure zone right there. There's a bit of a ram effect at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. So the hood scoops do work, but they don't feed the engine. Speaking of the engine, The big block Chevy really is, well, the backbone of Chevrolet performance through the 1960s into the 1970s. As good as the small block is, the big block has more torque, more cubic inches, and when you really want to get serious with big time horsepower to take on like a Boss 429 or a Hemi or something like that, or in pro stock, Bill Jenkins didn't use a small block in 1969. He used one in 1972 when he could. With that said, the big block's kind of the king father, whatever you want to call it, of Chevrolet performance, pre-LS era, obviously. Now this one here is kind of cool. The chrome valve covers and the aluminum intake manifold and the open element air cleaner would indicate, and the Holley 4-barrel, that this could be the L78. Now you got to remember that there were three versions of the 396. There was a hydraulic lifter 325 horse, a hydraulic lifter 350 horse unit, and the top dog, the solid lifter L78 375 horsepower job, which would have, again, the aluminum intake, the chrome valve covers, and the open element AC air cleaner. But again, this car here is a real super sport. We know that much. But again, this is the backbone right here. You got to wonder how many of those 87,030 SS Chevelles built in '69, turn people into lifelong Chevy enthusiasts. You got to wonder how many Roadrunner owners or Mustang 429 or 428 owners or 390 owners got beat by one of these things and then went out and bought one to get even with himself, if you will. But again, these are great cars, body on frame construction, very comfortable inside. So let's get back in this and have a peek at what's going on. As I mentioned earlier, the Super Sport didn't come standard with the buckets in the center console, but this one was optioned that way. And again, 1968 was the first year for Chevy's famous horseshoe transmission handle right here. 69 here, of course, the second year. And we can see right here, this is a 3-speed automatic, the Turbo 400 under the floor. Again, the big block 396 cars always got the Turbo 400, which was about 30% stronger than their Turbo 350, which is a lighter duty piece. Now, the thing about this is that this actually can be shifted manually. Here's first gear, second gear, third. Just don't hit neutral or reverse. But with that said, a lot of folks would use their horseshoe shifter to hold each gear a little longer so that Roadrunner in the lane next door would be behind you, hopefully not in front of you. But again, SS logos we see here in the middle of the horn right there, and of course on the doors and even on the dashboard. So Chevrolet wanted you very much to know the branding behind the SS 396 was everywhere, so you wouldn't miss the point. But something kind of cool on this one is a lot of original goodies. I always like to look inside the glove compartment. And in this one here, we see, look at this. This is Chevrolet single piston disc brakes, which were new on Chevelle. 67 first year 4 disc brakes, but the single piston stuff came along in 69. They're a little different from the 4 pistons that were used in 68 and previous, but this booklet right here tells you how to get used to your disc brakes, how to service them, and what a neat item right here. It's been with this car probably since day one. But again, disc brakes, a big deal, because in 1965-66, SS 396s had drum brakes in the front and the back, which could fade with heat and with usage. So the disc brakes were a huge improvement. Okay, let's look in the trunk. While the SS 396 Chevelle is a muscle car, it's also a family car. The trunk lid comes up, and inside, lots of room for groceries, baby carriages, etc. But in this trunk, we see some very telling things. Underside here, that sticker, caution, this vehicle equipped with a limited slip differential. Rear wheel may drive if in contact with ground, even though opposite wheel is raised. In other words, if you jack up one side of the car to change a tire and somebody puts it in drive, for some reason, who knows why, the car could drive down off the jack and create a problem. But with that said, this sticker tells us there's a 12 bolt inside that rear axle area, and that's a big 12 bolt with posi traction. Again, posi was optional. It wasn't standard on the SS, but with that said, it's a good thing to have because both tires push the car forward and you help to win that race. But another thing we see inside of here is this beautiful original paperwork. This is a build sheet right here from the Atlanta, Georgia plant where this car was built. And also we can see it was originally sold Gaddy Motor Company in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. The stock numbers here. And up on the right-hand side, we can see the car was inspected, and Gary Eugene Smith or South apparently was the lucky first buyer of this car, and how nice it is to have original paperwork. And I always say when you buy an older car, or even a new car, you'll find all kinds of paperwork inside it that you weren't expecting. Save it. Don't throw it away. It's always a plus down the road into the future. So that's the story of 1969. The middle year, actually, well, the 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, this body style went quite a long way, and rightfully so. Chevy's SS396 was one of the kings of the road if you were a Chevy fan. And if you were driving a Buick Grand Sport or a Pontiac GTO and you saw 396, you might think about turning off before you get to that stoplight, because it could embarrass you. These are very potent cars.